Hello and welcome to another belated We Are Sunderland episode today. We're a little bit later than usual, coming to you on Friday, the 17th of May. You know, it's only been 2 weeks since the end of the season, but there's still plenty to talk about when it comes to Sunderland. You know, we've had the retained list today, pre-season programmes being announced as well, and of course the head coach search continues to go on. I'm joined by Dom Shaw, but just before we get involved, I'm going to start by giving a shout out to our partners as usual down at the Fans Museum with Michael and the team and Cospex Opticians at Durham. And also I'm going to give another plug to our competition. There's only 1 week left of this now, and as far as I'm aware, that this isn't going to be extended again. So this is your last chance. This is the last week to get involved with this, to win a pair of Black Cats Bar season tickets for next season. It's just £1 to get involved. Subscribe to We Are Sunderland. You might even enjoy our content while you're there on the way. So get involved with that. Great prize, worth over £1,600, I think. So really worth getting involved with that. Like I say, another week to go next Friday, the 24th of May, when that runs till. So make sure you get involved. Dom, how are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad.
I can't believe it's you mentioned it there. I can't believe it's only a fortnight since the end of the season.
Yeah, that was going to be the first question. Does it feel like a fortnight or does it feel like about a month?
Yeah, it does. It does feel like an eternity. Obviously, we're recording on Friday, and I know that the playoffs are long gone for Sunderland, but I couldn't believe how poor and naive Norwich were in that semi-final against Leeds on Thursday night. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, it was better than the first legs. Both of them were very cagey, weren't they? And obviously, we had James Hunter's column. He does our pieces at We Are Sunderland. He referenced the playoffs this year as well. Just it does. There's a bit of a void there, isn't it? Sunderland have been quite accustomed with sort of entertainment at the end of the season in recent years. You know, League One and then the Championship last season. It's a bit odd, I suppose. First time in a few years that Sunderland haven't been involved.
Yeah, it is. And David Wagner paying the price. Not very often you see a manager sacked less than 24 hours after getting knocked out of a playoff game. But Wagner's gone at Norwich. And just before we started here, I had an email through from a PR company saying that Will Still and Liam Rossinia have been installed as the early favourites to take over at Norwich. That's now 4 championship clubs, I think I'm right in saying, who are looking for a new manager, which I think is quite unique, really, at this stage, at the end of a season. Will Norwich? I've kind of Norwich feels to me from the outside looking in like Norwich have maybe lost the way a little bit. Will they be looking for like a similar mould as
Yeah, it
be interesting to see how that progresses, won't it?
That second leg was they were just really poor, weren't they? I mean, full credit to Leeds, obviously a difficult place to go, but it was game over within sort of 20 minutes, wasn't it? Half an hour. But it is quite unusual to just straight away get the sack from immediately after the game. It makes you wonder whether there's something lined up or potentially been in the works prior to then.
Well, I know we're not on here to talk about the Canaries, but I remember when Sunderland beat Norwich earlier in the season. Can't remember when it was off the top of my head, but Wagner came into the post-match event and he hammered his senior players. And I remember walking away from there thinking, that's a manager who knows he's on borrowed time. That's a manager who's on his way out. And he turned it round. In fairness to him, they had a miserable start, didn't they? Turned it round and. Yeah, they got into the playoffs with a game to spare, but disappointing.
Yeah. I think it was Chris Sutton on the panel, wasn't it? And he was sort of saying that it's a different style of brand of football than what I think they expected Carrow Road, isn't it? So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But again, like what we said with Liam Rossinia getting sacked at Hull, that adds or potentially would have added, competition for Sunderland's places. I know that they've gone and appointed now, but yeah, you wonder how much this will impact what Sunderland are doing in terms of their head coach search, don't you?
Yeah, because I think, like with credit to Plymouth, I think they're in a slightly different boat. In that Norwich, Sunderland, and Hull, you'd all look at, if you were the Championship's unique, isn't it? And at the start of next season, there's probably going to be 15 or 16 teams thinking we want to get in amongst it. But Norwich, Sunderland, and Hull would be right in the conversation, wouldn't they, for teams who are going to be wanting to push for a top 6 finish, and they're all at this stage of the season looking for a new manager. As you say, it'll be interesting really to see how it progresses in the next week or so as to kind of who Norwich are going to look at, what type manager they're going to look at. You would think Sunderland are pretty well. They've had long enough now to identify the targets, and you would think they're pretty well set on their list of candidates and who they want. You wouldn't expect any new curveballs at this stage, would you? But I never say never, I suppose. You never know until an appointment's confirmed. You can't say for sure, can you?
Yeah, it's a strange one. And I suppose we'll start there now with the head coach, the way that we've spoken there. But even Monday, I asked this with Matty when, the Bo Svensson links came out. Did that surprise you at this stage of the game that another name has been thrown into the mix? Because we've had sort of Heckenbottom, Roll, Still's been there, Marich, and then, over the last week, another name comes into the mix.
Yes and no, because what we don't know is how long Svensson has been on the list. Svensson might have been one of the early names identified, or has been identified in the last couple of months. But they've kept it under wraps. That happens, doesn't it? Michael Beale's name didn't get out until quite late, really, did it? When he was appointed. I know that was different because the turnaround was a lot quicker. It would surprise me if names cropped up now that haven't been on Sunderland's radar, and then they've suddenly become alert to someone and added them to their kind of list of candidates. That had surprised me. Everything I'm hearing is that they've got their shortlist now. They've got the names, and it's going to be one of those. But things change, don't they? What if one of those names gets the head turned and goes somewhere else? What if they can't come to an agreement and suddenly choices 1 and 2 become choices 4 and 5, and new names do come into the mix? What it would be a surprise, I think, if at this stage Sunderland appointed someone whose name hasn't yet crept out. Now, that's not to say that there are names on their kind of list of candidates who are not yet in the public domain, but I think that'd be a surprise. But there's no real, at this stage, from the outside looking in, there's no real favourite, is there? There's no, I don't think either of us would be confident putting money down at this stage and saying the next manager is going to be X or Y. It still feels very much up in the air, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And just sort of gloss on what you said there as well, there's also the potential, one of these shortlisted candidates could say no. that is still very much in the frame. You said there about getting your head turned, but they could fail to get an agreement anyway. With that as well, do you think then, based on what we're saying here, that there's still legs in this? There's still a little bit of time for this to run before we find out who it's going to be?
Well, you need someone in by pre-season, don't you? You absolutely need someone in by the start of pre-season. Ideally, you need someone in weeks before that, don't you? Because I know transfers are different these days, and it's not the head coach who has the final say, the only say. But you would expect the new head coach to have some input, certainly in Sunderland's transfer plans. And transfer plans are going to be ramping up in the next 2 or 3 weeks, aren't they? So the earlier, the better, undoubtedly. Now, whoever it's going to be is clearly aware now of the prospect of managing Sunderland. So they're not coming in with their eyes closed. They're going to be able to do the background. And from Sunderland's perspective, I guess you're looking at it now and thinking, well, the players aren't due back until, for weeks and weeks yet. What's the difference at this stage between a week and 3 weeks? If rather than make an appointment in a week, for whatever reason, would we benefit from just holding off a couple more weeks? I don't know why. I don't know what conversations are going on, what might be holding things up, whether a kind of an agreement is close to being reached with one man. But I would imagine that's the case. But we're in the middle of May now, middle of June at the latest. It feels like at the absolute latest you want someone in then, because I think then, if not, questions would start to be asked. You've had 6 months. You've had 6 months now to get a manager. Why isn't someone in yet?
Yeah, you're kind of taking off what I was going to say there, just to play devil's advocate in terms of what would be the difference of making an appointment now to, say, a fortnight or 3 weeks down the line from the club's point of view. From the fans' point of view, though, they've already looked at it, and there's 3 months gone since Michael Beale was sacked. The basis of Dodds being put in charge was to make sure that they could do a thorough process, a thorough search for the ideal candidate. Now, a fortnight on from the end of the season, and it does feel as though it's up in the air almost. If there's fresh candidates coming in last week, and still being down to just a short list rather than trying to iron out the finer details with the candidate, you can understand why supporters will be frustrated about this at the moment, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that, the longer it goes on, the more pressure there is to appoint someone with the X factor, or if that's not overdoing it, then someone who'll certainly please the fans. Because if not, you do run the risk of kind of, with respect to like someone like Michael Beale, like we've waited that long for that. Do you know what I mean? So I do think with kind of every passing week, pressure's increasing really on someone who on the need to bring someone in who excites the fans, especially on the back of last season and the disappointing season and the extremely disappointing end to the season. This has to be a fresh start, doesn't it? And you want to move into the summer and pre-season with enthusiasm. And an exciting head coach appointment would be the perfect way to do that, to start that.
I mean, we spoke about it towards the end of the season, didn't we? That does it then need a figurehead to come out and say what's happening, a bit of an update? Obviously, we haven't had anything yet. Do you think that should happen? If they sort of know internally that there still could be another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long before this is made, do you think that they could come out, or they should come out and just give a bit of an update to say to supporters where they're at in the process? Or do you believe that the silence that we're getting is going to continue until the head coach is appointed?
I'd be surprised. I might be wrong, but I'd be surprised if we heard from anyone like Christian Speakman or Kira Louis-Dreyfus ahead of the appointment. What can they say from their side of things? All they can really say is that we're continuing the process of speaking to candidates. Realistically, if hypothetically they are waiting on an answer from someone, they can't say that, can they? Because then what if that man says no, and suddenly the next person you go to suddenly knows that they're second choice or third choice or fourth choice? I think we've talked about this at length, haven't we? I think it would have undoubtedly benefited them for someone to come out a month or so ago, kind of 6 weeks ago, just reflect on the season and to kind of look ahead to the summer. Then they wouldn't have really had to go into the specifics of the head coach search, rather just kind of reflect on the season, mistakes made, and how they hope to put them right. Now, if they were to speak, it feels like it's too far gone from the season, doesn't it? Yeah. It'd have to be all on the head coach. And unless a decision is made, unless an appointment is guaranteed, I don't know what they'd say, really, what they could say. What do you think?
Yeah, it's one of those where I think you're almost damned if you do and damned if you don't. Because of how last season went, like you say, it was so frustrating. And I think we spoke about this on Monday with Matty, just in terms of if there'd been a better end of the season under Dodds, even slightly better if they'd finished in the top half, for example, or with a couple of wins, it would have just deflected a little bit. Look, the head coach appointment is obviously the important factor ahead of next season, ahead of pre-season. But if there was just something tangible to take into the summer, he might have afforded just that little bit more luxury with it. But I think the way that it went, the apathy, you look at the lap of appreciation when they went round, there was next to nobody left in the ground. And that just felt to me as though it needed a reset hitting immediately with the new head coach coming in. Obviously, we're a fortnight on and we're still no closer to that, it feels like. So, yeah, I can understand the frustration, but I also get what you're saying in terms of, like what I said, they're almost damned if they do and damned if they don't at this point, because you do now just want to kind of detach yourself from the season, don't you, because of how it finished and going back over all ground. And if they come out and say that they're still in talks or in processes, then they're likely probably just going to get as much flack as what they'd get now, almost, wouldn't they?
I think it's important as well that the new man coming in, and obviously there will be, is aware of that feeling that you talked about there at the end of the season, because a club united, when Sunderland are united, there aren't many more powerful forces in the Championship, are there? And I think if the new man can come in and prioritise that early on, then you're 1-0 up already, aren't you, going into the start of the season? Now, clearly transfers and things like that are going to influence things. If Sunderland go at the start of the if Sunderland end the transfer window without signing a striker again, then you know you're fighting those battles and having to put those fires out again. But that feels like priority number one for the new head coach, doesn't it? Just getting everyone singing from the same hymn sheet again.
It does, yeah, and then that goes back to the point of thinking the sooner that they can get in, the sooner that they can start doing that. I mean, again, we spoke in the previous pod about they've got all of their, if it's going to be an overseas coach, they've got their personal life to sort beyond the actual job of it as well. So it is quite fascinating how it's playing out. But again, it does need to be sorted because people need something to cling on to going into next season. And looking ahead to next season, well, we'll move on a little bit. You mentioned if the transfer window ends without a striker. I think after today's news of the retained list, unsurprisingly, I would guess, but not bringing a defensive midfielder in might be it's a similar paramount, isn't it, in the summer to bring that role in. Corry Evans and Bradley Dack have been confirmed that they will be leaving the club this summer. Ellis Taylor as well out the academy, but Evans in particular, he was the one that I think you could maybe have given a case for to add another year onto his deal, just purely because of what we've heard sort of first team staff, academy staff, teammates say of his impact sort of away from the pitch. He's been injured for 18 months, I think, hasn't he, since that Middlesbrough game last season. He's going to be a big figure to replace on and off the field, isn't he?
Yeah, you tweeted about it this morning when the news came out about kind of all that he offers, forgetting what he offers on the pitch, but all that comes with kind of the Corry Evans package, really. And clearly that is going to be a huge miss because we've had 3 head coaches in the last season talking about the need for grey hair, the need for experience. Mowbray used to talk repeatedly, didn't he, about how it's important for the players to have someone in the dressing room they can go to rather than just, as he used to put it, like a 60-year-old bloke, someone who they can maybe relate to a bit more. And Evans was very much a figurehead, wasn't he, in the dressing room? That's going to be a miss. And clearly Sunderland were short of that sort of figure anyway, weren't they? And what he offers on the pitch, Sunderland are also short. Sunderland, we've talked about this again at length, haven't we? That there does feel like the need for a specific sort of midfield player this summer. I'm sure we're going to get on to Callum Styles. Obviously, his future's uncertain. Sunderland still have the option to make that deal permanent, but haven't yet made a decision there. Striker has to be top of the transfer wish list, but midfielders undoubtedly second, isn't it?
As well as that, I mean, you're taking 2 experienced players out. I know Dack's had his issues this season. People probably wouldn't be surprised to see him not get the extra year of his deal. But you're taking a 33-year-old out with Evans, a 30-year-old out with Dack. You've already got the youngest squad in the Championship. That's reducing at the moment, isn't it? Again, just adds the emphasis of just adding, not necessarily, like you said, that 30-plus-year-old player, but that player that's got a couple of 100 games of experience in and around this level to boost this team.
Well, Dodds talked about that. We were at more than one press conference, weren't we, when Dodds talked about that, how he'd sat in on recruitment meetings at the back end of the season, and he'd recommended from what he'd seen in the difficult second half of the season, what he felt was needed, what he felt was required this summer. And one of the key things was that bit of championship nous. Now, like you said, and Dodds pointed this out, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a 30-plus player, but it's someone with a couple of 100 games under the belt. It's someone who comes in and has a running start. They're not coming in and needing time to acclimatise and needing time to settle. I've no doubt there's going to be signings like Mayenda and Hemia and Rusin this summer. But there is a balance, isn't there? That Sunderland need to bring in players who can go straight into that team on the first game of next season and make an impact. And the midfielder feels like one of those. And the striker and the midfielder both feels like project signings will come in undoubtedly. But it feels like at this time, what Sunderland need are ready-made players for up front and in the middle of the park.
Absolutely, and just to sort of finish on Evans as well here, when he came in 3 years ago, he was immediately sort of promoted to being club captain ahead of the League One season. I think he made 67 appearances across them 3 years, but he helped the club get up out of League One. He was a mainstay in the Championship side last season before he got injured. He's one that you would very much put in the box of good business, wouldn't you, at the time that they brought him in and the job that he's done?
Well, when I was writing that this morning, you're kind of surprised that he's only made 67 appearances, yeah, because he's had an impact of a player who's made double that, at least. Undoubtedly good business. Like you say, major player in the promotion, and would have continued to be a major player last season had he not got that injury against Middlesbrough. He was a key man. Mowbray loved him, didn't he? He'd have continued to play in that side last season, and that's one of the big disappointments. How different things would have been. Would we have been sat here having this? I know his age. Take that into account. But would we have been sat having this conversation now had he not picked up that injury? Or would Evans have put Sunderland in a position where they had to give him a new deal? They couldn't let a player who was so important leave for nothing, because even if he'd have not featured quite as prominently this season, he'd have still been a major player, wouldn't he? You don't let someone like that go for now.
It feels that way, yeah. I mean, you just even think if you could bring, you mentioned project signings there, bringing a project in alongside him felt as though it would be something that could have worked, but obviously not to be. I think one quote that I just want to lift from his parting message, which I thought was interesting. Leading this team as captain has been the greatest honour of my career. Obviously started out at Man United, made over 200 appearances for Blackburn as well. Quite a statement to make, and it also, I guess, shows what this club can do to players when it gets under the skin.
And I think that's another thing to point out there. He clearly realised what Sunderland are all about. He was clearly well aware of the stature of the club. That's important as well, isn't it? That you have players who are aware of the enormity of what's around him. Mowbray used to talk about that a lot, didn't he? How he was kind of constantly aware of just how much of a privilege it was to be head coach of the club. I think Evans was undoubtedly one of those. Now, I'm not for 1 minute saying there are any Sunderland players that don't think that, but with someone of Evans's experience and for all he's achieved in the game, then there's added gravitas undoubtedly there, isn't there? As for Dack, you touched on Dack. Again, like, clearly experienced, huge talent, encouraging start to the season when you look back. Featured prominently in first 4 games, maybe 5 off the top of my head, and then only featured in 4 games in the second half of the season. Only made 6 starts. That was an inevitable one, wasn't it?
Where do you see their futures? Do you think that they can still go back in at a Championship club, or are they looking lower than that now, do you think?
Evans, definitely. Evans, undoubtedly. Now, obviously, we don't know the situation with Mowbray. If he goes back in at Birmingham this summer, I would fully expect him to like the idea of having both of them, because he'll see both of them, won't he, as 2-year deals, get us up, keep us up, which is probably where Birmingham are at now. Like, clearly there'd be an agreement to be reached contract-wise with Dack when you look at his injury record over the last couple of seasons. But if Mowbray was to go back in at Birmingham this summer, I would fully expect him to look at those 2 players. Evans, like, I think if you're a Championship club, particularly with respect to bottom half Championship club who need a bit of maybe a team coming up, there are a lot of upsides to Evans, aren't there? Dack, it's that balance, isn't it? Match winner on his day. How much is he going to play? How reliable is he these days? What do you think?
I think I echo what you say, to be honest. Dack was one that you could see that the idea behind that was to try and appease Mowbray, just with the way that the rest of the signings had gone. And if he could have rekindled that form of Blackburn that he had, he would have been an excellent signing, particularly the way that it went with the strikers as well, if he could have found even half of that form. The injuries obviously haven't helped. I mean, he's had 2 really significant injuries at Blackburn before this season, and then he had the hamstring injury on Boxing Day as well. But even still, it got to the point towards the end of the season where you were thinking, well, is it worth giving Dack another look in because of how much Sunderland was struggling at the top end of the pitch? It doesn't surprise me that they're not going to take up that option, though. He probably hasn't done enough to justify the wage that he may or may not be on for another season if they think that they can go and spend that better elsewhere. I mean, the output was I think 1 goal, 1 assist. Like you say, 6 starts. You need more anyway, regardless of whether that's from Dack or less experienced player. And with Evans again, I think you're right. I think you could see him going in to a side who might just need that little bit of stability or that little bit of nous towards the bottom end of the Championship. I certainly think you could do a job there. But you also make a good point about the Birmingham situation as well. You know, if they could go and get someone like him, how much that could help them in a sort of a promotion push next season as well.
Just on Ellis Taylor, come with you on that, because you spoke to Ellis not so long ago, didn't you, for a lengthy interview on We Are Sunderland. What are your thoughts on that one?
It's a shame to see his time come to an end. Again, it's one that I'm probably not surprised about, because he's hitting that threshold now where he's either got to make it or break it. As such, at the club, he's been here since a 9-year-old, over a decade. He's one of those that's already been on the periphery for quite a while. If you think back to the League One time, he was in and around the squad, and like when you're looking through the ranks and you're always looking for the next player who might be the one to break through, he was the one that was always there or thereabouts. And then he just drifted away a little bit. Went and had the loan at Hartlepool season before last. Obviously didn't work out there. He was a little bit unfortunate there with everything that was going on at Victoria Park, you know, with the change of managers and things like that, and not being favoured. And then I think it was Keith Curl who said he didn't even know where to play him. You know, what you're meant to do as a player if your manager's not going to ask you about where you're going to play. Obviously off field as well, he's had so much to deal with, you know, unthinkable, to be honest, what he's had to go through off the field, coupled with that sort of difficult patch in his career. To then bounce back this season, captain the academy team to a 7th place finish in the Premier League 2 and a semi-final, I think is tremendous. He's shown so much courage this season to do what he's done and perform the way that he has. I'm really interested to see where he goes next, whether he can get a Football League club, maybe League 2 or something like that. What he needs is he needs a full season in senior football to really test himself, because he never really got the chance to do that at Hartlepool because he was overlooked. He got a handful of games and that was about it. Whereas at Sunderland, he's continued to show that he's capable at developmental level, but he's at that age now where he needs to probably kick on into senior football now if he's going to make a name for himself. So really interested to see what he'll do next. But undoubtedly, he's been a good player at youth levels right the way through the ranks for Sunderland, and probably just a little bit unfortunate that he never got more of a chance at times, particularly in League One. I think if the loan at Hartlepool had gone better, he might have got another look in this season. But you know, circumstances and the way that things go in football. But one thing you would say, I think Graham Murphy said it as well. You know, he's been a great pro for Sunderland, and you know, he's been great to work with for them. You know, he was excellent with me for the time that he gave me for that interview as well, which we thank him for. And yeah, I wish him the best of luck. I hope it goes well for him. He's been a good player for them, particularly this season. It'll be nice to see if they can go and finish it off and certainly get to the final of the playoffs.
Yeah, Jack Diamond released, and then 10 academy players as well. So just to echo what you say, they're best of luck to all of them leaving Sunderland, and hopefully we'll see, certainly with the academy players, them popping up at Football League clubs in the future.
Absolutely. And we're just going to wrap it up in a minute, but before we do, we'll touch on the reason why we're late today. You've been up to the academy, this morning, speaking to Sunderland's new chief operating officer or business officer, David Bruce. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of content to come, you know, within agreements, you know, embargoes and things like that. But from your time spent with him this morning, you know, he's been at the club for, I think, 9 months now, but he's moved into this role, I think, instead of Steve Davison, who was obviously departing. But what was your take from that meeting with him? How did he come across? What do you think the sort of job he can do at the club can be?
It was really good. He gave us loads of his time. I think we sat there for an hour or so this morning speaking to him, which was really beneficial for us, obviously, and hopefully for him with kind of the messages he wants to get out. The one thing that kind of screamed through is he has Sunderland in his heart, and he talked about, as I say, we've got various pieces to come next week under agreed embargoes, like you touched on there. But he talked about his kind of upbringing as a Sunderland fan, and how he then went and spent plenty of time working in the States, worked for the MLS, and did some really good things there, but then was tempted back to join his club. And there's immense pride there, and clearly with everything he does, there's going to be a balance between the work side of things, but also kind of that knowledge of the club and knowing what the fans are feeling, kind of tapping into the understanding of the fans and the passion and the love around the club. It was good. Yeah, thanks to him for, if he's watching, I would hope he is. Thanks to him for his time, obviously, this morning, and plenty to come from that next week. So keep your eyes peeled there.
Yeah, subscribe as well, David, if you're watching.
Sure, he is already.
Just on that, as well, his MLS stuff is particularly impressive. If you look at his CV from there, he was big into he was behind a lot of the brand extension there, wasn't he? And getting other partners on board. I think like the Apple TV thing and even the Messi deal that went through. He was very much involved with all of that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he went in there quite young, and at the infancy, really, not of the infancy of the MLS, but behind the kind of recent boom, if you'd call it that, and had a key role in the link-ups with various huge brands, and like you say, the Messi deal, which was clearly enormous over there. And what he did talk about was how in America, customer service is probably better than anywhere else in the world. Now, clearly, Sunderland fans aren't customers, but putting the fans first is going to be centre to everything he does. I think Kirill mentioned that, didn't he, in his statement when it was confirmed that David Bruce was taking on that role. So he's certainly, his CV is pretty impressive when you look at what he did over there.
But it is a big job that he's got here, isn't it? Because we've spoken about the off-field stuff. I mean, obviously the glaring one. Again, we're not going to go into details because the embargo stuff's to come. But the Black Cats Bar stuff was an incident. But you look beyond that. You look at the sort of the retail aspect and the customer service, things like that. There has been, I don't want to say neglect, but it has been below par of late for supporters. All of that's going to encompass in his role, isn't it, in terms of just promoting and developing that and getting it back on track.
Yeah, it is. And I think what's going to be important is listening to fans. Now, that's not to say at all that Sunderland haven't done that, but it's probably more important now than ever before. And I think, like, clearly you don't need to be a fan to be in that role at all. But I think in these circumstances, it will help that he knows the club, he knows the city, and he loves the club and he loves the city as well, and will clearly value hugely the importance of listening to fans and getting that fan feedback. And the early moves this summer are positive, aren't they? Hummel, I think, is a you talked about Hummel. We'll have that stuff coming next week. Is a major boost forward. The Fanatics deal is another one. Obviously, the work that's going on at the Stadium of Light. It all positive steps, I think.
Yeah, fingers crossed, and make sure you keep your eyes peeled to We Are Sunderland for all of those updates from David Bruce next week. And we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time this Friday, Dom.
No, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy your weekend.
Yes, we'll be back next week for another episode of the We Are Sunderland podcast. Doing a quick plug for the Black Cats Bar season ticket offer that we've got 1 week left next Friday when this competition ends. So it's £1 to subscribe. Make sure you get involved with that. And we'll plug it again next week. And we'll be back on Monday for another briefing. Thank you very much for joining us.